Look closely at the body of a killer whale and you will start to notice them. Small round holes, clean circles cut into the skin, each one about the size of a coin, as if somebody pressed a cookie cutter into the flesh and lifted out a perfect plug. Now pull back and look at the animal wearing those scars. This is the orca, the single most powerful predator in the ocean. It hunts great white sharks and eats their livers. It works in coordinated groups to drown blue whales, the largest animals that have ever existed. It has no natural predator anywhere in the sea. Nothing hunts the orca, nothing. And its skin is dotted with those neat round craters. Something is biting it, something bold enough to carve a piece out of the most feared killer in the ocean and get away clean. Here is the part that makes no sense. The thing leaving those scars is small enough to hold in one hand. For almost 50 years, nobody could say what it was. The wounds turned up on whales, on dolphins, on great white sharks, and eventually on nuclear submarines, and the best minds in marine biology had no idea what was making them. So how does an animal the size of a cucumber take a bite out of a predator that fears nothing? To understand that, you first have to see just how untouchable the orca really is, and then you have to meet the one creature in the entire ocean that simply does not care. Chapter 1: The Animal Nothing Touches. Start with the brain. The orca has one of the largest brains of any animal alive, and it lives more socially than almost anything else in the sea. Orcas travel in family groups called pods. They communicate constantly in dialects specific to each pod, sounds passed from mother to calf like language. They plan, they teach. A hunting technique invented by one orca can spread through a pod and be handed down for generations. Which means they do not hunt on instinct, they hunt on culture. Then there is the body. A large male can reach 30 feet and weigh 6 tons, driven through the water by a tail generating enormous power. Rows of interlocking conical teeth built to grip and tear, a bite stronger than that of any land predator alive. But the frightening thing about an orca is not the size or the speed. It is what they do with them. Off the coast of South Africa, orcas have learned to hunt great white sharks. They do not overpower them in a straight fight. They flip them. An orca will ram or nudge a shark until it turns upside down. And once a shark is inverted, it falls into a paralyzed state called tonic immobility. Held there, it suffocates. The orcas then open it up with something close to surgical precision, remove the liver, an organ rich in oil and energy, and frequently leave the rest of the carcass untouched. Great whites have been documented abandoning an entire region for months after orcas move in. Sit with that. The most famous predator in the sea runs away from them. And great whites are only one item on the menu because there is no single thing an orca eats. Around the world, they have split into groups called ecotypes, each specializing in different prey using different methods. In the Arctic and Antarctic, orcas hunt seals, resting on ice floes by swimming at the floe in a coordinated line, driving a wave up and over the ice to wash the seal into the water. The timing has to be exact. The whole group has to commit at once, or the wave never forms. Off Argentina, orcas launch themselves clean out of the water and onto the beach, deliberately stranding their own bodies to snatch sea lion pups from the shallows, then wriggling back into the sea. Mothers teach it to their young over years of practice. It is genuinely dangerous. An orca that strands too far up the beach can die there. They do it anyway, because the payoff is worth it, and because the knowledge of exactly how to do it safely is passed down through the family like an heirloom. In the Pacific Northwest, one population lives almost entirely on salmon and can distinguish species, preferring fatty Chinook over everything else. Another population in the very same waters ignores fish completely and eats only marine mammals. They look nearly identical. They share the same ocean. They do not mix, and they do not interbreed. Two different cultures wearing the same body. And some populations attack the largest animals on Earth. Pods have been documented hunting and killing blue whales, wearing the giant down over hours, taking turns, blocking the blowhole so it cannot breathe, and staying with it until it stops. Think about the confidence that requires a coordinated assault on the biggest creature that has ever lived, planned and carried out by animals that decided as a group that they could win. Warm-blooded, cold-blooded, armored, fast, enormous, it does not matter. Somewhere in the ocean, there is an orca that has worked out how to kill it. That is the animal we are dealing with. And it is covered in bite marks. Chapter 2. The Mystery Wound. Once you know to look for these scars, you find them everywhere. They appear on killer whales, on sperm whales, on dolphins and porpoises, on great white sharks, on tuna, on swordfish, on enormous deep-diving whales that spend their lives in the dark. They have been found on almost every large animal that swims through warm ocean water. And always the same shape. A clean circular crater, roughly 2 inches across and a couple of inches deep, as though a core had been drilled out and removed. That consistency was the problem, because for decades, nobody could explain it. The wounds were blamed on all sorts of things: bacterial infection, lampreys, parasites, some unidentified disease. Every explanation ran into the same wall. The shape was too clean, too regular, too deliberate. An infection does not produce a perfect circle. A scrape does not cut a cylinder. Whatever, this was not damaging tissue at random. It was removing a precise plug over and over with something purpose-built for the job. And there was a second problem that made it worse. The scars showed up on animals living at the surface and on animals that spend their lives thousands of feet down. They showed up on some of the fastest fish in the sea and on the slowest, heaviest whales. They showed up on predators that nothing was supposed to be able to approach. Whatever was making these wounds could apparently reach anything, anywhere, at any depth. There was no pattern to hide behind, and no habitat that offered protection. And then it got stranger, because the wounds started appearing on things that were not alive. The same neat circular gouges were found in undersea telecommunications cables, in oceanographic instruments lowered into deep water, in the rubber components of research equipment, and in the rubber sonar domes of United States Navy submarines. We will come back to that because it is a genuinely remarkable story and it deserves its own chapter. But hold this in your head for now. Something in the deep ocean was biting nuclear submarines and leaving exactly the same mark it left on whales. Chapter 3, 1971. The answer, when it finally came, did not arrive through a submersible or a camera or a dramatic encounter in the deep. It arrived through a dissection. In 1971, a researcher named Everett Jones was examining the stomach contents of a small, remarkable deep-sea shark that had been pulled up in fishing gear. Nobody thought much of this animal. It was little, it was rarely caught, and it was not considered important. Inside its stomach, Jones found something that stopped everything. Small conical plugs of flesh. Not shredded tissue, not chewed fragments. Neat cylinders of meat, the exact shape and size of the mystery craters that had been turning up on whales and sharks for decades. The wounds and the stomach contents were the same object, seen from two ends. That was the moment the whole thing cracked open. The animal responsible was not some undiscovered monster of the deep. It was not a swarm. It was not a disease. It was a shark you could hold in both hands. And that delay is worth appreciating. These wounds had been described in the scientific literature for decades. Researchers had photographed them, measured them, argued about them. The answer was not hiding in some unexplored trench. It was swimming through well-traveled water the entire time, small enough and unremarkable enough that nobody thought to check its stomach. Chapter 4, The Cucumber with Teeth. This is the cookie-cutter shark. An adult runs somewhere between 16 and 22 inches long, slim, cigar-shaped body, blunt little snout, large green eyes set forward on the head. There is nothing about it that reads as dangerous. Held next to a 30-foot orca, it barely registers as the same category of object. It looks less like a predator and more like something a predator would swallow without noticing. It lives in the deep ocean, generally spending its days far below 3,000 feet, down in permanent darkness. And every night it rises, climbing hundreds of feet toward the surface to feed, then sinking back into the dark before dawn. It is one of countless small creatures riding that great vertical tide up and down the water column each day. This nightly migration is the largest movement of animal life on the planet, happening every 24 hours in every ocean and almost nobody ever sees it. The cookie cutter is just one traveler among billions, easy to overlook among all the rest. But this one is different, because the cookie cutter shark has evolved into something that should not be possible for an animal its size. It is a predator that feeds on giants. Its entire way of life is built around removing bites from animals, hundreds or thousands of times larger than itself. And it does not do this by fighting them. It does it by convincing them to come closer. And here is a detail that tells you how badly built it is for a straight fight. The cookie cutter is a poor swimmer. Its body is shaped for hanging and drifting in the water column, rising and sinking vertically rather than sprinting. It cannot chase anything. It cannot outrun anything. In a race against literally any of its victims, it loses. Which is exactly why the trick it evolved, instead, is one of the strangest things in the entire ocean. Chapter 5: A Lie Made of Light. The underside of the cookie cutter shark is covered in thousands of tiny light-producing organs called photophores, and they glow a vivid green. This is the brightest bioluminescence known in any shark. It is so persistent that it can continue glowing for up to 3 hours after the animal is dead. Now, why glow at all? In the deep ocean, faint light filters down from the surface. Anything hanging below looks up and sees a dimly lit ceiling with dark shapes silhouetted against it. If you are a small animal down there, your own shadow is what gets you killed. So the cookie cutter erases it. By glowing along its belly, it matches the light coming from above and effectively disappears from below. This is called counter-illumination, and plenty of deep-sea animals use it to hide. But the cookie cutter takes it one step further, and this next part is the reason this animal is famous. There is a band around its throat, a dark collar of skin that does not glow. Against the lit-up belly, that unlit patch stands out as a small, distinct, sharply defined shape. It looks exactly like the silhouette of a little fish. Read that again, because it is genuinely difficult to believe. Here is a predator that hides its entire outline and then displays one fish-shaped shadow in the middle of the glow. A fake minnow hanging in the water, apparently alone, apparently defenseless, apparently an easy meal. A tuna sees it, a dolphin sees it, a large shark sees it. Something bigger and faster and stronger moves in to take what looks like a free snack. That is the trap. The hunter becomes the prey at the exact moment it commits. Biologists call this aggressive mimicry, an animal pretending to be something else in order to lure in a target. It exists elsewhere in nature, but this version is unique. Every other glowing animal in the sea uses light to lure. The cookie cutter is the only known creature that uses the absence of light as the bait. Its trap is not the glow. Its trap is the one spot it refuses to light up. Chapter 6. 3 seconds. When the larger animal arrives, everything happens fast. The cookie cutter presses its thick, fleshy lips against the skin and seals on like a suction cup, helped by its throat drawing back to create a genuine vacuum grip. It is not holding on with strength. It is holding on with pressure. Then, the upper teeth go in. These are narrow and hooked, and they are not the cutting instrument. They are anchors. The cutting is done by the lower jaw, and this is where the animal earns its name. The lower teeth are large, triangular, and interlocked so tightly that they form a single, continuous blade running the width of the jaw. Relative to body size, they are the largest teeth of any shark alive. The entire lower jaw functions as one curved cutting edge. And then the shark spins. Anchored by the upper teeth, sealed on by the lips, it rotates its whole body in a tight twist, and that blade of a lower jaw carves a clean, circular plug of flesh straight out of the victim. One rotation, the shark swallows the plug and lets go. What is left behind is that perfect round crater, the exact mark found on whales, on sharks, on submarines. Estimates put the whole sequence at a matter of seconds. And the victim almost always survives. That is the key to the entire strategy. The cookie cutter is not trying to kill anything. It cannot kill anything. It wants one mouthful, and one mouthful is what it takes, and then it is gone, sinking back into the dark long before the enormous animal it just bit can even turn around to see what happened. It is not a hunter in the way we usually mean the word. It is closer to a toll collector. Chapter 7. Swallowing its own weapons. Those oversized lower teeth come at a cost. They wear down, and they have to be replaced. Most sharks handle this by shedding teeth continuously, one at a time, throughout their lives. It is why shark teeth wash up on beaches by the thousand. The cookie cutter cannot do that. Because its lower teeth are interlocked into a single functional blade, losing one at a time would ruin the edge. So instead, it sheds the entire lower row in one piece, all at once, and grows a complete new set behind it. And it does not spit the old row out. It swallows it. Researchers believe this is about mineral recovery. Teeth are expensive to build. Down in the deep ocean, where food is scarce and every scrap of calcium matters, throwing away a full set of teeth is an unacceptable waste. So the cookie cutter recycles its own weapons. Over a lifetime, a single individual may swallow hundreds of its own teeth. And it starts early. Cookie cutters give birth to live young, in litters usually numbering somewhere between 6 and a dozen. Each pup arrives already equipped with the lips, the blade, and the glowing underside. There is no gradual introduction to the trade. A young cookie cutter is born into the deep, and begins doing the one thing its entire body was built for. An animal that hunts by lying about light and pays for its blade by eating the old one. Chapter 8: The Submarine War. Now the story that made this shark legendary. In the 1970s, at the height of the Cold War, the United States Navy had a problem it could not explain. Submarines were coming back to port damaged, not from collisions, not from weapons. Clean, round chunks were being gouged out of the rubber coverings around their sonar domes and out of the rubber sheathing on exposed cables. This was not cosmetics. Those sonar domes are filled with oil that transmits sound. When the covering is breached, the oil leaks out, and the equipment stops working properly. Which means the submarine goes partially blind. Several had to abandon what they were doing and return to base for repairs. Consider the environment this was happening in. Unexplained damage to nuclear submarines in the middle of the Cold War, with no identified cause. Some suspected a new class of Soviet device. Others assumed a defect in the rubber compound. Nobody suspected a fish. Why would they? The idea that the deterrent force of a superpower was being degraded by an animal you could fit in a lunchbox was not on anybody's list. In 1978, a researcher named C. Scott Johnson published a paper with the wonderfully dry title, Sea Creatures and the Problem of Equipment Damage. In it, he identified the culprit. The cookie-cutter shark had been biting the submarines. It was encountering a large, smooth, dark shape moving through its water at night, possibly attracted by the glow of instruments or the electrical fields around the hull, and it was doing the only thing it knows how to do. It was taking its plug. And it was not an isolated incident. Through the 1980s, roughly 30 United States Navy submarines were recorded with this damage. The eventual solution was to add fiberglass coverings over the vulnerable surfaces, which means a fish smaller than a bread loaf permanently changed the design of the most advanced warships ever built. Now hold that thought and go back to the orca. If this animal is bold enough to bite a nuclear submarine, then a killer whale is nothing special to it. It is just another large, warm shape passing through the dark. Just another opportunity. Chapter 9: Why the Orca Cannot Win. Every weapon the orca has is designed to overpower another large animal. Speed to run something down. Strength to hold it. Intelligence to outmaneuver it. A pod to surround it and wear it out over hours. Against a seal, a shark, even a blue whale, that toolkit works beautifully. Against the cookie-cutter shark, not one part of it applies. You cannot outsmart something that is not competing with you. You cannot outmaneuver a predator that has already finished and is swimming away. You cannot coordinate a pod against a target that was never going to stay. There is no fight to win, because by the time the orca registers the bite, there is nothing left to fight. The shark latched on, spun, took its plug, and released all in a few seconds in the dark, and then it dropped back down toward depths where the orca has no reason and no realistic way to follow. The cookie cutter does not beat the orca by being stronger. It beats it by refusing to play the game the orca is built to win. The orca's entire dominance rests on being able to catch and kill large things, but you cannot catch what is already gone, and you cannot kill something whose whole strategy is to take one bite and vanish. And there may be an additional cruelty in it. Remember the lure, that dark collar shaped like a little fish. It is entirely possible that some of the orcas carrying these scars were bitten because they went to investigate what looked like a small, easy meal. The most intelligent hunter in the ocean, drawn in by a shadow the size of a minnow, and paying for its curiosity with a piece of its own body. The predator, hunted by something pretending to be prey. Chapter 10. It bites us too. One more thing, in case you were feeling comfortable. For most of the 20th century, it was assumed this shark had essentially no relevance to humans. It lives too deep. It comes up only at night. Nobody swims where it feeds. Then people started swimming where it feeds. In 2009, a long-distance swimmer attempting a night crossing of the channel between Hawaii and Maui was bitten. In 2019, swimmers taking part in a similar open water challenge were injured the same way. The wounds were exactly what you would expect: clean circular craters, cut and removed in a single motion. These are extremely rare events. You are not in danger at the beach, and this animal is not a threat to public safety in any meaningful sense. But it does confirm something about how this shark makes decisions. It does not appear to be selective. It does not evaluate whether a target is a whale, a tuna, a submarine, or a person. It registers a large shape in the dark at the right depth, and it takes its plug. That is the whole strategy, and it has been working, largely unchanged, for a very long time. There is one final detail worth knowing, and it is the sort of thing that sounds invented. The scientific name of this animal's genus is Abyssistius. It comes from Isis, the Egyptian goddess associated with light. A creature named for light, which built its entire existence around using light to lie. Chapter 11. What apex actually means. We like to think the top of the food chain is a simple place. The strongest animal wins. The apex predator sits above everything, untouchable, because nothing can overpower it. The orca is the closest thing the ocean has to that ideal. It genuinely has no predator. Nothing hunts it. Nothing kills it. Nothing drives it out of its waters. By every normal measure, it is the undisputed ruler of the sea. And it is covered in scars from an animal it could swallow without noticing. That is the part worth sitting with. Being the apex predator does not mean nothing touches you. It means nothing kills you. Those are not the same thing. The orca rules the ocean, and it still pays a small tax over and over across its entire life to a creature the size of your hand that it probably never sees coming. Not a rival, not a threat to its life. Something more like a toll collector working in the dark, taking one piece each time and disappearing before there can be any answer. The cookie-cutter shark will never kill a killer whale. It does not want to. It does not need to. It has simply found the one gap in the armor of the ocean's perfect predator. You cannot defend against an enemy that only wants a bite and is gone before you feel it. And so the greatest hunter in the sea swims on, powerful and unchallenged and marked all over, carrying the fingerprints of the smallest predator that ever got the better of it. Look closely at the body of a killer whale and you will start to notice them. Small, round holes, each one a place where the ruler of the ocean met something it could not fight and lost a piece of itself to a shark that fits in the palm of a hand. And somewhere below, in the dark it came from, that little shark is still glowing, still waiting, still holding up a shadow shaped like an easy meal for whatever comes to take it next. Chapter 12. Before you go. If you made it this far, you now know something most people do not. That every scar has an author, and sometimes the author is the last thing you would ever suspect. Leave a like if this one got you, and tell me in the comments which part landed hardest. The submarines, the teeth it swallows, or the fact that its lure is not the light, but the one place it refuses to shine. And if you want more of the parts of the ocean that do not behave the way they are supposed to, subscribe and stick around. There is always something down there quietly rewriting the rules while nobody is watching. Thanks for watching.